The small town of Pinewood wasn't used to newcomers. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and family names carried history that stretched back generations. So when the Chen family moved into the old blue house on Maple Street in the middle of the school year, people noticed. For 12-year-old Lily Chen, the move felt like being uprooted from solid ground and planted in shifting sand. Back in Shanghai, she had friends, a routine, and most importantly, her grandfather who had taught her to play the violin since she was 5 years old. Now, halfway across the world, all she had left of him was his old violin, worn at the edges but still producing the most beautiful sound when she played it. On her first day at Pinewood Middle School, Lily clutched her backpack straps tightly as she walked through unfamiliar hallways. The other students stared, some whispering behind their hands. Her clothes weren't like theirs, simple and practical rather than trendy. Her accent made some words come out wrong, causing a few kids to snicker when she introduced herself in class. "I am Lily," she had said, standing at the front of Mr. Peterson's English class. "I come from China 6 weeks ago." "Well, Lily," Mr. Peterson had said kindly, "we're happy to have you. Please take a seat next to Zoe." Zoe Thompson, with her perfectly styled hair and group of friends who seemed to rule the 7th grade, had barely glanced at Lily as she sat down. Instead, she'd slid her chair an inch further away. Lily pretended not to notice. She was good at that, observing without reacting. Her grandfather had always told her that watching was the first step to understanding, and understanding was the first step to belonging. That afternoon, Lily's mother and father left for their new jobs at the local furniture factory before she got home from school. They worked long hours, her father from 2 in the afternoon until midnight, her mother from 7 in the morning until 3. They had explained that this schedule would be temporary, just until they saved enough money. But Lily knew from their tired eyes that temporary might be a very long time. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms above Mr. Garcia's convenience store. The walls were thin enough that Lily could hear the register bell ding throughout the afternoon. But there was one advantage to being alone after school. She could practice her violin without worrying about disturbing anyone. She opened the battered violin case, running her fingers over the small Chinese characters carved into the inside of the lid, her grandfather's name, and the date he had received it as a young man. The violin itself was nothing special to look at. But when Lily lifted it to her chin and drew the bow across the strings, it sang with a voice that made her feel like her grandfather was still with her. She played one of his favorite pieces, a traditional Chinese melody that reminded her of home. As the last notes faded, she heard clapping from outside her window. Startled, Lily looked out to see an elderly woman standing on the small balcony of the apartment building next door. Her silver hair was pulled back in a bun, and she wore a paint-splattered apron. "That was beautiful, dear," the woman called across the narrow alley. "I haven't heard playing like that in years." Lily felt her face grow warm. "Thank you," she said shyly. "I'm Mrs. Rivera," the woman said. "I teach art at the community center. You must be the new family that moved in last week." Lily nodded. "I'm Lily." "Well, Lily, you have a gift. Don't let anyone tell you differently." For the first time since moving to Pinewood, Lily felt a small spark of hope. Maybe she could find a place here after all. The next day at school, Lily noticed a colorful poster on the bulletin board outside the cafeteria. "Pinewood Youth Orchestra auditions," it read. "Open to all students ages 11-18. As she read the details, a tall girl with glasses and a cello case strapped to her back stopped beside her. "Are you thinking of auditioning?" The girl asked. Lily hesitated. "Maybe. I play violin." "Cool. I'm Abby. I play cello in the orchestra." She pointed to the case on her back. "It's pretty competitive to get in, but you should try out. The director, Ms. Winters, is tough but fair." Before Lily could respond, Zoe appeared with 2 of her friends. "You're not seriously considering auditioning, are you?" Zoe asked, looking Lily up and down with a smirk. "The Pinewood Youth Orchestra is kind of a big deal. People train their whole lives to get in." "I've played violin since I was 5, Lily said quietly. Zoe laughed. "Yeah, but this isn't just any orchestra. My cousin plays first violin, and she started with private lessons when she was 3. They perform at the governor's mansion every year." She glanced at Lily's worn shoes and simple clothes. "Plus, you need a proper instrument and formal concert attire." Lily thought about her grandfather's violin. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but it made beautiful music. Still, maybe Zoe was right. Maybe this wasn't for someone like her. Abby frowned at Zoe. Don't listen to her. Anyone can audition. Ms. Winters only cares about how you play, not what you're wearing or where you came from. Whatever, Zoe said with a shrug, just trying to save her the embarrassment. She walked away with her friends, their laughter echoing down the hallway. Lily stared at the poster a moment longer. The auditions were in 2 weeks. She had been practicing daily since she arrived in America, but was she good enough for a prestigious orchestra? That evening, when her mother returned from work, Lily told her about the auditions. I don't know if I should try, she said in Mandarin as she helped her mother prepare dinner. The other kids say it's very competitive. Her mother's hand stilled as she chopped vegetables. What does your heart tell you? Lily thought about how she felt when she played, like she was speaking a language everyone could understand no matter where they came from. I want to try, she admitted, but what if they laugh at me? Her mother resumed chopping. Your grandfather always said that music speaks when words cannot. If your music is strong, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks before you play. After you play, that's when they will understand who you truly are. Later that week, Lily discovered that the music room was left open after school for students to practice. The first time she walked in, violin case in hand, she found it empty except for a piano in the corner and rows of music stands. It became her sanctuary. Every day after classes, she would slip inside and practice for hours, losing herself in the music. Sometimes she played the pieces listed on the audition notice, Bach, Vivaldi, Mozart. Other times she played her grandfather's favorites, letting the melodies of home fill the empty room. One afternoon, as she finished a particularly difficult passage of Vivaldi's Spring, she heard a sound at the door. Looking up, she saw a woman with curly gray hair and sharp eyes watching her. Don't stop on my account, the woman said, stepping into the room. That was impressive. Lily lowered her violin. Thank you. I'm Ms. Winters, the music director. And you are? Lily Chen, I'm new, Ms. Winters nodded. Mr. Peterson mentioned we had a new student from China. He didn't mention you were a violinist. She gestured to Lily's instrument. May I? Hesitantly, Lily handed over her grandfather's violin. Ms. Winters examined it carefully, running her fingers along the wood and testing the strings. This is an interesting instrument, she said finally. It's quite old but well maintained. The sound is unique. It was my grandfather's, Lily explained. He was a music teacher in Shanghai. Ms. Winters handed the violin back. Will you be auditioning for the youth orchestra? Lily nodded, surprised that the director herself was asking. Good. We need fresh talent. Ms. Winters turned to leave, then paused at the door. A word of advice, Lily. When you audition, play something that means something to you. Technical skill is important, but music needs heart to truly move people. After Ms. Winters left, Lily sat quietly, thinking about her words. Play something that means something to you. She knew exactly what that would be. The day before auditions, Lily overheard Zoe and her friends talking in the hallway. Did you hear that new girl is actually auditioning? Zoe was saying. With that beat-up old violin? This should be entertaining. Maybe she's really good, one of her friends suggested. Please, Zoe scoffed. My cousin says the competition this year is tougher than ever. There's no way some factory worker's kid who just got off the boat is going to impress Ms. Winters. Lily felt her chest tighten as she walked past them, pretending not to hear. That night she barely slept, her mind filled with doubts. What if they were right? What if she made a fool of herself? But when she finally drifted off, she dreamed of her grandfather. In the dream, he was sitting beside her as she played, nodding encouragingly just as he had done when she was learning. Remember, he said in the dream, the violin does not care who holds it. It only cares how it is played. When Lily woke up the next morning, she knew what she had to do. She would audition and she would play with everything she had. Whether she made it into the orchestra or not, she would honor her grandfather's teaching and her own love of music. Because sometimes, the only way to truly belong is to first find the courage to stand alone. The morning of the audition, Lily woke with the sun. She had barely slept, her mind replaying the pieces she would perform over and over like a record stuck on repeat. Outside her window, Pinewood was just starting to stir, a few early birds singing, a car engine turning over in the distance, the smell of bread baking from the bakery 2 blocks away. She dressed, carefully in her nicest clothes, a blue button-up, blouse her mother had ironed the night before, and dark pants that were a little too short at the ankles but clean and neat. Her hair, usually left loose around her shoulders, she pulled back into a tidy ponytail. Looking in the mirror, Lily hardly recognized herself. She looked older somehow, more serious. Her mother had already left for work, but she'd left a note on the kitchen table written in careful English. "Play with your heart today. We are proud." Next to it sat a small paper bag with a steamed bun inside, her favorite breakfast from home. The gesture brought tears to Lily's eyes. Her parents worked so hard, rarely complained, and still found ways to support her dreams. She couldn't let them down. The auditions weren't until after school, which meant Lily had to sit through 6 hours of classes, while her stomach twisted itself into knots. In math, she stared at the equations on the board without really seeing them. In English, Mr. Peterson had to call her name twice before she realized he was asking her a question. "Sorry," she mumbled, her face heating up as classmates snickered. "Nervous about something?" Mr. Peterson asked kindly. Lily nodded. "Orchestra auditions," she said quietly. "Ah," he replied with an understanding smile. "Well, best of luck." Now, as I was saying about the theme of courage in our reading, at lunch Lily didn't feel like eating. She sat alone at the end of a table, her sandwich untouched, watching the other students laugh and talk. Across the cafeteria she spotted Abby, the cello player, sitting with a group of kids who all carried instrument cases. They must be in the orchestra, Lily thought. As if sensing her gaze, Abby looked up and waved Lily over. After a moment's hesitation, Lily picked up her lunch tray and walked to their table. "Hey everyone, this is Lily," Abby said as Lily sat down. "She's auditioning today." The other students nodded and smiled, some offering words of encouragement. "What are you playing?" asked a boy with curly hair who introduced himself as David. "Vivaldi's Spring for the classical piece," Lily replied, "and something else for the personal choice." "Spring is tough," said a girl named Tina who played flute. "But if you can nail it, Ms. Winters loves it." "What's your personal choice?" Abby asked. Lily hesitated. "It's a Chinese piece my grandfather taught me. It's called Butterfly Lovers." "Cool," David said. "Ms. Winters is big on cultural diversity and music. She'll probably love that." For the first time that day, Lily felt her tension ease slightly. These kids weren't looking down on her or making fun of her choice. They were treating her like one of them, a musician. As lunch ended and they all stood to go to class, Abby touched Lily's arm. "Just play like you did in the music room that day," she said. "You've got this." The afternoon dragged by in a blur. Finally, the last bell rang, and Lily made her way to the auditorium where the auditions were being held. A small crowd had gathered outside, students with instruments, parents, and curious onlookers. Among them, Lily spotted Zoe and her cousin Beth, who indeed carried a sleek, expensive-looking violin case. As Lily approached with her grandfather's worn violin case, Zoe nudged Beth and whispered something. Beth looked over, her expression a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. "Sign-in is over there," Zoe called out to Lily, pointing to a table where Ms. Winters sat with a clipboard. "Though you might want to reconsider. Beth's been practicing her piece for months." Lily didn't respond. Instead, she walked directly to the sign-in table, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. "Name?" Ms. Winters asked without looking up. "Lily Chen." Ms. Winters glanced up, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Ah, yes, the music room violinist." She handed Lily a number. "You'll be auditioning 14th. Wait in the hall until your number is called." Lily took the paper, number 14, and found a quiet corner in the hallway. She opened her violin case and began her warm-up routine, softly running through scales and checking the tuning. Around her, other students were doing the same, creating a cacophony of musical fragments that somehow blended into a strange, nervous harmony. One by one, students were called into the auditorium. Some emerged looking relieved, others fighting back tears. Beth went in at number 9, confident and poised. When she came out 15 minutes later, she was smiling broadly. "Nailed it," she announced to Zoe. "Ms. Winters said my technique was impeccable." Lily tried not to listen, focusing instead on her own breathing. In for 4 counts. Out for 4, just as her grandfather had taught her when she got nervous before performances. Finally, a student stuck his head out the auditorium door. "Number 14, he called. Lily stood, her legs feeling like they were made of jelly. As she walked towards the door, violin in hand, she heard Zoe whisper loudly, "This should be good." The auditorium was larger than Lily had expected, with rows of empty seats stretching back into darkness. On the stage, a single chair was set up next to a music stand. At a table in the front row sat Ms. Winters and two other adults Lily didn't recognize, presumably the other judges. "Please introduce yourself and tell us what you'll be playing," Ms. Winters said, her voice echoing in the large space. Lily stepped onto the stage, her footsteps sounding unnaturally loud. "I am Lily Chen," she said, her voice smaller than she intended. She cleared her throat and tried again. "I am Lily Chen. I will play Spring from Vivaldi's Four Seasons for my classical piece, and Butterfly Lovers for my personal choice." One of the judges raised an eyebrow at her second selection, but made no comment. "You may begin when ready," Ms. Winters said. Lily positioned her violin under her chin, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first few notes of Spring came out shakily, her nervousness causing her bow to tremble slightly. But as she continued, something shifted. The familiar melody wrapped around her like an old friend, comforting and encouraging. She closed her eyes, letting the music guide her fingers. Vivaldi's notes danced through the auditorium, bright, lively, full of the promise of new beginnings. When she reached the challenging run in the middle section, the part she'd practiced over and over in the empty music room, her fingers flew across the strings with surprising confidence. The final notes of Spring faded. Lily opened her eyes. The judges were watching her intently, their expressions unreadable. "And your personal choice?" Ms. Winters prompted. Lily nodded and repositioned her violin. This was the piece that mattered most to her, the one her grandfather had taught her note by note, the one that spoke of her heritage and her heart. "Butterfly Lovers" began softly, almost a whisper of sound before building into a melody that was at once sorrowful and sweet. Unlike Vivaldi's structured composition, this piece allowed for personal interpretation, for emotion to guide the dynamics and tempo. As Lily played, she thought of her grandfather's hands guiding hers on the bow, of the stories he told her about the star-crossed lovers the music depicted, of the butterfly that represents the spirit of the girl who died for love. She poured everything into the music, her homesickness, her struggle to fit in at Pinewood, her determination to honor her grandfather's teaching. When she reached the climax of the piece, tears pricked at her eyes. But her playing never faltered. The final note hung in the air for a long moment before dissolving into silence. Lily lowered her violin and bow, suddenly aware that she'd been so lost in the music that she'd forgotten where she was. The judges were staring at her with expressions she couldn't interpret. Had she done well? Badly? Had she embarrassed herself just as Zoe predicted? Then Ms. Winters did something unexpected. She set down her pen, leaned over to whisper something to the other judges, and turned back to Lily with the smallest hint of a smile. "Thank you, Ms. Chen. That was illuminating. We'll post the results tomorrow morning." Unsure if that was a good sign or not, Lily bowed slightly, gathered her violin, and walked off the stage on shaky legs. As she left the auditorium, she was surprised to see a small crowd had gathered near the door, students who had already auditioned and were waiting to hear how others performed. Among them were Abby, David, and several other orchestra members. They looked at Lily with wide eyes. "That was amazing," Abby whispered. "We could hear you from out here." "Really?" Lily asked, not quite believing her. "Seriously," David agreed. "I've never heard Butterfly Lovers played live before. It was incredible." Even as they spoke, Lily noticed Zoe and Beth standing a few feet away, their expressions less certain than they had been earlier. "It wasn't bad," Beth admitted grudgingly when she caught Lily looking at her. "For a beginner." Coming from Beth, Lily suspected that was as close to a compliment as she was likely to get. As the group dispersed and Lily headed home, clutching her violin case close, she felt lighter somehow. Whether she made it into the orchestra or not, she had played her best. She had shared her music, not just the notes on the page, but the feelings behind them. And for the first time since arriving in Pinewood, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she had found a place where she could truly belong. That night, when her parents returned from work, tired but eager to hear about her audition, Lily told them everything, about her nervousness, about the way the music had taken over, about the reactions afterward. No matter what happens, her father said, his English careful and deliberate, you showed courage today. That is already victory. Her mother squeezed her hand across the dinner table. Your grandfather would be proud. Lily nodded, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. For tonight it was enough to know that she had played her heart out. And for a few magical minutes, the music had erased all boundaries, of language, of culture, of belonging. She had spoken through her violin, and someone had listened. Lily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the music from her audition playing in her head. She remembered the judges' faces, especially Ms. Winter's almost smile at the end, and wondered what they had really thought of her playing. By the time her alarm went off the next morning, she had already been awake for an hour, staring at the ceiling and trying not to think about the orchestra results that would be posted today. You look tired, her mother said, as Lily picked at her breakfast. Did you sleep? Not much, Lily admitted. Her mother brushed a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. Whatever happens, we are proud of you. Remember that? Lily nodded, though her stomach was tied in knots. She had tried so hard, put so much of herself into the music. If she didn't make it into the orchestra, what would that say about her? About her grandfather's teaching? The walk to school felt longer than usual. With each step, Lily rehearsed how she would react if she saw her name on the list, and how she would hold herself together if she didn't. When she reached the front entrance, a crowd had already gathered around the bulletin board where results would be posted. Among them, Lily spotted Abby's tall figure and David's curly hair. She didn't see Zoe or Beth, which was a small relief. Lily, Abby called out, waving her over. They haven't posted it yet. Ms. Winters is supposed to put it up at 8. Lily checked her watch. 7:52. 8 minutes, that felt like 8 hours. Are you nervous? David asked her. Lily nodded, not trusting herself to speak without her voice shaking. Me too, he confessed. Even though I was in the orchestra last year, you never know. There were a lot of good cellists auditioning this time. His honesty made Lily feel a little better. Even the returning students weren't guaranteed a spot. At precisely 8 o'clock, Ms. Winters appeared at the end of the hallway, a single sheet of paper in her hand. The crowd of students parted to let her through, falling silent as she approached the bulletin board. Without a word, she pinned the paper to the board and stepped back. Good luck to all of you, she said. Those who made it, first rehearsal is Tuesday after school. Those who didn't, I encourage you to try again next year. Then she was gone, leaving the crowd to surge forward toward the list. Lily hung back, suddenly afraid to look. What if her name wasn't there? What if all her practice, all her courage had been for nothing? Come on, Abby said, grabbing her arm. Let's check together. They pushed their way through the crowd, Abby using her height to advantage. When they reached the front, Abby's finger ran down the list. I made it, she exclaimed. Second chair, cello. Lily's eyes darted to the violin section, scanning quickly for her name. Chen, Lily, first violin, third chair. She blinked, certain she had misread it. Not only had she made it into the orchestra, but she had secured third chair in the first violin section, an honor usually reserved for the most experienced players. Lily. Abby squealed, having spotted her name too. Third chair. That's amazing for a new student. Around them, other students were reacting to the results, some celebrating, others comforting friends who hadn't made it. David found them in the crowd, his face split in a wide grin. I'm in. Fourth chair, cello, he told Abby. Then turning to Lily. Third chair, first violin. That's incredible. Lily couldn't find words. She felt lightheaded with relief and disbelief. She had done it. She had actually done it. As the initial excitement began to die down, Lily noticed Zoe and Beth arriving at the bulletin board. Beth pushed her way to the front, her finger moving quickly down the list to the first violin section. Her triumphant smile faltered slightly. Second chair, she announced to Zoe. Not bad. Who got first? Some kid named Huang, Zoe replied, scanning the list. And, wait, that can't be right. Lily knew exactly what Zoe had seen. Her name listed at third chair, right after Beth's. Beth's head whipped around, her eyes finding Lily in the crowd. For a moment, her face registered pure shock. Then her expression hardened. Third chair? She said loudly. There must be some mistake. The auditions were blind after the first cut, David explained. Ms. Winters didn't know who was playing during the final round. So there's no mistake, it was just the music. Beth's cheeks flushed red. Whatever, she muttered. It's just third chair anyway. She stalked off, Zoe hurrying after her. Lily should have felt victorious in that moment, but instead she felt a strange mix of pride and unease. She had earned her spot, but it was clear that not everyone would be happy about it. Her worries were confirmed later that day in the hallway, when she overheard Beth talking to a group of friends. I'm just saying it's weird, Beth was saying. She shows up out of nowhere with some beat-up old violin and suddenly she's third chair? My parents paid for 10 years of private lessons. Maybe she's just good, one of her friends suggested. Beth rolled her eyes. Or maybe Ms. Winters feels sorry for her because she's, not from here. Lily walked past quickly, pretending not to hear, but the words stung. Was that what people would think? That she only made it because of where she came from, not because of how she played? That evening at home, as Lily practiced in her room, the joy of making the orchestra was overshadowed by Beth's insinuations. Even as her fingers moved automatically through the scales she'd played 1,000 times, her mind kept returning to the same question. Did she really deserve her spot? A knock at her bedroom door interrupted her thoughts. It was Mrs. Rivera, the elderly neighbor who had heard her playing that first day. Your mother let me in, Mrs. Rivera explained. I hope you don't mind the interruption, but I wanted to congratulate you. Your mother told me about the orchestra. Thank you, Lily said, lowering her violin. Mrs. Rivera's eyes were kind but perceptive. You don't look as happy as someone who just got into a prestigious orchestra should look. Lily hesitated, then found herself telling Mrs. Rivera about Beth and the comments she'd overheard. Mrs. Rivera listened carefully, then sat down on the edge of Lily's bed. Let me tell you something, Lily. I taught music at the high school here for 30 years before I retired. I've seen hundreds of talented young musicians, and I've seen even more jealousy and pettiness. What did you do about it? Lily asked. Nothing, Mrs. Rivera said simply. Because there's nothing you can do about other people's insecurities. All you can do is play your music and let it speak for you. But what if they're right? What if Ms. Winters only picked me because— Stop right there, Mrs. Rivera interrupted firmly. Catherine Winters has been directing that orchestra for 20 years. She's turned down children of town council members and school board presidents if they weren't good enough. Trust me, if you got third chair, it's because you earned it. Lily wanted to believe her, but the doubt had already taken root. The only way to silence the doubters, Mrs. Rivera continued, is to be so good they can't ignore you. Your first rehearsal is coming up, yes? Lily nodded. Tuesday after school. Then that's your chance. Show them exactly why you deserve that chair. After Mrs. Rivera left, Lily returned to her practice with renewed determination. She would work twice as hard, be twice as prepared. She would leave no room for anyone to question her place in the orchestra. Tuesday arrived both too quickly and not quickly enough. When the final bell rang, Lily made her way to the music room, her violin case clutched tightly in her hand. Outside the door, she paused, taking a deep breath before walking in. The room was already half full with students setting up instruments and music stands. Abby waved from the cello section, while David was unpacking his instrument nearby. In the first violin section, Beth sat in the second chair position, pointedly not looking at the empty third chair next to her. Ah, Ms. Chen, Ms. Winters called from the conductor's podium. Right on time. Third chair, first violin section. As Lily made her way to her assigned seat, she felt eyes following her. She kept her head high, remembering Mrs. Rivera's words, "Let your music speak for you." Once everyone was seated, Ms. Winters passed out new sheet music, a challenging piece by Mozart that would be their first performance piece of the season. We'll sight read through it once, Ms. Winters announced. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Just get a feel for the piece. Lily looked over the music quickly. It was difficult with several fast runs and tricky key changes, but nothing she couldn't handle with practice. As they began to play, Lily focused entirely on the music, letting her fingers find the notes, her bow maintaining a steady pressure on the strings. Around her, other students stumbled occasionally over difficult passages, but Lily played smoothly, her years of daily practice paying off. During a particularly challenging section, she glanced up briefly and caught Ms. Winters watching her, that same almost smile on her face. When they reached the end of the piece, Ms. Winters nodded approvingly. Not bad for a first read-through. Now let's go back and work on the tricky parts. For the next hour they worked section by section, repeating difficult passages until they began to sound cohesive. Lily lost herself in the process, forgetting about Beth and Zoe and all her doubts as she focused on making each note as perfect as possible. By the end of rehearsal, even Beth seemed to have forgotten her resentment as they all worked together to master the piece. "Good work today, everyone," Ms. Winters said as they packed up their instruments. "Especially the first violin section. That third movement is coming along nicely." As the other students filed out, Ms. Winters called Lily over to the podium. "Your sight-reading skills are impressive," she said without preamble. "Not many students your age can handle that Mozart piece so confidently on first reading." "Thank you," Lily said, surprised by the direct praise. "That Chinese piece you played at your audition," Ms. Winters continued, "it was extraordinary. I'd like to include it in our spring concert program as a solo piece, if you're willing." Lily stared at her, momentarily speechless. "A solo at the spring concert? That was an honor usually reserved for the most senior students. Yes, I'd be honored," she finally managed. Ms. Winters nodded. "Good. We'll discuss the details later. For now, keep practicing. You've earned your chair, Ms. Chen. Don't let anyone tell you differently." As Lily left the music room, her step was lighter than it had been in days. Ms. Winters' words had confirmed what Mrs. Rivera had told her. She was here because of her talent. Nothing else. Outside the school, she spotted Abby and David waiting for her. "How does it feel to be the orchestra's newest star?" Abby asked with a grin. Lily smiled back, a real smile that reached her eyes. "It feels like home," she said simply. And for the first time since moving to Pinewood, she meant it. In the weeks that followed the first rehearsal, Lily fell into a new routine. School, practice, orchestra rehearsals twice a week. More practice, homework, sleep, repeat. Though her days were fuller than ever, she felt a sense of purpose that had been missing since leaving China. The Mozart piece was coming along well, with the orchestra growing more confident with each rehearsal. Ms. Winters was a demanding director, stopping them frequently to correct a tempo or adjust the dynamics, but her high standards pushed everyone to improve. For Lily, the biggest challenge wasn't the music, it was navigating the social dynamics of the orchestra. While many students like Abby and David had accepted her, Beth and her friends maintained a cool distance. They weren't openly hostile anymore, but Lily often caught them watching her with narrowed eyes when she played a difficult passage perfectly or received praise from Ms. Winters. One Tuesday after rehearsal, as Lily was packing up her violin, Beth approached her. It was the first time they had spoken directly since the results had been posted. "Ms. Winters told me you're playing a solo at the spring concert," Beth said, her voice carefully neutral. Lily nodded, bracing herself for a sarcastic comment. To her surprise, Beth just sighed. "Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot. My mom says I was being a poor sport about the whole third chair thing." Lily didn't know how to respond to this unexpected turn in the conversation. Anyway, Beth continued, "I've been playing violin since I was 3, and I've never been offered a solo, so you must be pretty good." It wasn't exactly an apology, but coming from Beth, it felt like a major concession. "Thank you," Lily said. "Your playing is very good too. I can tell you've had excellent training." Beth seemed pleased by this recognition. "My teacher studied at Juilliard," she said with a hint of pride. "She says I could get into a conservatory for college if I keep improving." She hesitated, then added, "That Chinese piece you played at the audition, I've never heard anything like it. Is it hard to learn?" "Not harder than Mozart," Lily replied. "Just different. My grandfather taught it to me over many years." "Is he a famous teacher in China?" Lily smiled at the thought of her humble grandfather being described as famous. "No, just a school music teacher, but a very good one." Beth nodded thoughtfully. "Well, see you Thursday," she said and walked away, leaving Lily slightly puzzled by the interaction, but hopeful that perhaps the tension between them was beginning to ease. As she left the building, Lily spotted Ms. Winters in her office sorting through sheet music. On impulse, she knocked on the open door. "Ms. Chen," Ms. Winters said, looking up. "What can I do for you?" "I've been thinking about the solo," Lily said. "Butterfly Lovers is traditionally played with an erhu accompaniment. It's a Chinese string instrument. I was wondering if it might be possible to have one for the concert, to make the piece more authentic." Ms. Winters leaned back in her chair, considering. We don't have an erhu player in the orchestra as far as I know. Do you play? Lily shook her head. My grandfather does. He taught me violin, but erhu was his main instrument. I see. Ms. Winters tapped her pen against the desk. Is your grandfather still in China? Yes, Lily said, feeling a pang of homesickness. I was just thinking aloud, really. We could use the piano for accompaniment. Let me think about it, Ms. Winters said. In the meantime, how are you feeling about the solo? It's a big responsibility. A little nervous, Lily admitted. But excited too. Good. Nerves keep us sharp. Just keep practicing and we'll start working on the solo arrangement next week. On her walk home, Lily's thoughts drifted to her grandfather. She hadn't seen him in nearly 3 months now, the longest they had ever been apart. They spoke weekly on video calls, and he always asked about her violin practice, his eyes lighting up when she told him about the orchestra. If only he could hear her play the solo piece at the concert, the piece he had taught her note by note over countless hours together. The thought made her both happy and sad at the same time. When she arrived home, her mother was in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming softly to herself, a Chinese folk song Lily recognized from childhood. How was rehearsal? Her mother asked. Good, Lily said, setting down her backpack and violin case. Beth actually spoke to me today. Almost nicely, her mother smiled. See, time changes things. People begin to see who you really are. Ms. Winters and I talked about the solo too. I mentioned that Butterfly Lovers is supposed to have erhu accompaniment. Lily paused, then asked the question that had been forming in her mind on the walk home. Do you think? Is there any way grandfather could come visit? For the concert? Her mother's hand stilled. Lily, you know we cannot afford such a trip right now. The plane ticket alone. I know, Lily said quickly. It was just a thought. Her mother wiped her hands on a towel and came to sit beside Lily at the table. Your father and I are saving every extra dollar. In another year, maybe 2, we can bring your grandparents to visit. But right now, she gestured around their small apartment, the unspoken reality of their financial situation hanging in the air between them. I understand, Lily said, pushing down her disappointment. It was a silly idea. Later that night, after finishing her homework, Lily had her weekly video call with her grandfather. His familiar face appeared on the screen, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled at her. Ah, there's my little butterfly, he said in Mandarin. It was his nickname for her. Ever since she had first learned to play Butterfly Lovers, Lily found herself suddenly fighting back tears. She missed him so much it was a physical ache in her chest. What's wrong, Lily? He asked, his smile fading to concern. She told him about the solo, about how she wished he could be there to hear it, to see how far she had come with the piece he taught her. I am proud of you, he said simply. Every day I am proud, and when you play, I will hear you in my heart, even across the ocean. They spoke for nearly an hour, Lily telling him about the orchestra, about Beth and Ms. Winters, about how the music made her feel connected to home even when she was so far away. Before they ended the call, her grandfather said, Play a little for me now? Just a minute or two? Lily picked up her violin and played the opening of Butterfly Lovers, the sweetly sorrowful melody filling her small bedroom and traveling through the internet connection to her grandfather's apartment in Shanghai. When she finished, she saw that he had tears in his eyes. Beautiful, he said softly. You play it even better now than when you left. The following Thursday at rehearsal, Ms. Winters made an announcement that sent a murmur of excitement through the orchestra. The school board has approved a special addition to our spring concert, she said. We will be performing a piece showcasing Chinese classical music, featuring a solo violin performance of Butterfly Lovers by our own Lily Chen. Lily felt a flush of pride, mixed with nervousness at being singled out. Additionally, Ms. Winters continued, we have received a small cultural exchange grant that will allow us to bring in a guest musician from China to accompany the piece on the erhu, the traditional Chinese instrument for which it was originally composed. Lily's heart skipped a beat. A musician from China? Could it be Ms. Chen? Ms. Winters said, looking directly at Lily with that hint of a smile. I've been in touch with your mother about possibly bringing your grandfather here for the concert. Since you mentioned he plays the erhu, the grant won't cover his entire trip, but it will help significantly. Lily couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her grandfather coming to Pinewood? It seemed impossible. There's still much to arrange, Ms. Winters cautioned. But if all goes well, we'll have a very special performance indeed. After rehearsal, Lily raced home, bursting through the door to find her parents sitting at the kitchen table with serious expressions. Ms. Winters told me, Lily said breathlessly, about the grant, about maybe bringing grandfather here. Her father nodded. We've been discussing it. The grant will help, but we would still need to cover part of the ticket and his stay here. I've been picking up extra shifts at the factory, her mother added, and your father has found weekend work at Mr. Garcia's store. Lily's excitement dimmed. You're already working so hard. For family, her father said firmly. We work harder. But, no buts, her mother interrupted. Your music has brought you so far already. We want your grandfather to see it, to be part of it. Besides, her father added with a rare smile, your grandfather has already applied for his travel visa. He says wild horses couldn't keep him from hearing his butterfly play on an American stage. Joy bubbled up inside Lily, so intense it was almost painful. Really? He's really coming? Her parents nodded, and Lily threw her arms around them both, too overcome to speak. That night, Lily practiced Butterfly Lovers with renewed purpose. Every note, every phrase had to be perfect, not just for the audience or for Ms. Winters, but for her grandfather, who had planted the seeds of music in her heart and would now travel across the world to hear them bloom. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. The orchestra rehearsed diligently for the spring concert, which was now just a month away. In addition to the group pieces, Lily worked with Ms. Winters after rehearsals on her solo, refining her interpretation and discussing how it would merge with her grandfather's erhu accompaniment. Word had spread throughout the school about the special cultural addition to the concert. Lily noticed people looking at her differently in the hallways, with curiosity and sometimes even respect, rather than the indifference or mild confusion of before. Even more surprising was the change in Beth. One day after rehearsal, she approached Lily with an unusual request. I was wondering, Beth said, sounding uncharacteristically hesitant, if you might teach me a bit about Chinese violin technique sometime. The way you play those slides and ornaments. My teacher says it's a completely different approach than Western classical style. Lily was taken aback. You want me to teach you? Beth nodded. If you're willing. I know we're not exactly friends, but I want to be a well-rounded musician, and what you do is it's really beautiful. It was perhaps the most genuine thing Beth had ever said to her. Lily felt a wall between them crumbling, just a little. I'd be happy to show you, she said. Maybe we could practice together sometime? I'd like that, Beth replied with a small but genuine smile. As Lily walked home that day, she marveled at how much had changed in just a few months. From being an outsider with a worn violin and no friends, she had found her place in the orchestra, earned respect for her playing, begun to forge connections with her peers, and would soon be reunited with her beloved grandfather. Music had been her bridge from past to present, from China to America, from isolation to belonging. With every note she played, she was building something new while honoring everything that had come before, and the concert, when it came, would be the culmination of that journey, a moment when all the separate parts of her life would finally play together in harmony. The day Lily's grandfather arrived was unseasonably warm for spring in Pinewood. Lily stood with her parents at the airport arrival gate, shifting her weight from foot to foot, her eyes fixed on the doorway where passengers emerged from customs. He should be out any minute, her father said, checking his watch. The flight landed 20 minutes ago. Lily nodded, too nervous to speak. What if her grandfather had changed in the months since she'd last seen him? What if she had changed too much? Then suddenly there he was, his familiar stooped figure, his silver hair, the gentle smile that had been part of her earliest memories. In one hand he carried a small suitcase. In the other, a long, narrow case that Lily recognized immediately as containing his erhu. Grandfather, she called out, forgetting to speak English in her excitement. His face lit up when he spotted her. Setting down his bags, he opened his arms just in time to catch Lily as she rushed toward him. My little butterfly, he murmured into her hair. Look how you've grown." "I haven't grown," Lily laughed through her tears. "It's only been a few months." "Ah, but you have," he said, holding her at arm's length to look at her. "Not in height, perhaps, but in here." He tapped his finger gently against her heart. Her parents stepped forward then, her father taking the suitcase, her mother embracing her father-in-law warmly. They spoke rapidly in Mandarin, catching up on family news as they made their way to the parking lot where Mr. Garcia had loaned them his car for the airport pickup. On the drive home, Lily's grandfather looked out the window with interest at the American landscape, so different from the crowded streets of Shanghai. "It's very green here," he observed, "and so much space between the houses." "Wait until you see the mountains," Lily told him. "They're beautiful. Maybe we can drive up there this weekend after the concert." "Ah, yes, the concert." His eyes twinkled. "Tell me about this Ms. Winters who arranged for an old man to cross the ocean." Lily described her music director, strict but fair, demanding but encouraging. "She loved Butterfly Lovers when I played it at my audition. She said it was extraordinary." "As it should be," her grandfather nodded. "We practiced it enough times, didn't we?" Lily smiled at the memories of long afternoons in his small apartment, going over the same passages again and again until her fingers ached, and the melody sang out exactly as it should. "Have you been practicing the Erhu part?" she asked. "Ms. Winters arranged for us to rehearse together tomorrow at school." "Every day," he assured her, "though these old fingers are not as nimble as they once were." "They're nimble enough," Lily said confidently. When they arrived home, Mrs. Rivera was waiting at the door of her apartment across the hall. "You must be Lily's grandfather," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Mrs. Rivera. I've heard so much about you. And your music." Lily's grandfather shook her hand warmly. "I hear you have been a good friend to my granddaughter. Thank you for that." Mrs. Rivera smiled. "It wasn't hard. She's a special young woman." "Yes," he agreed, glancing at Lily with pride. "She is." That evening, after a dinner of all Lily's, grandfather's favorite dishes that her mother had spent days preparing, he asked Lily to play for him. Just the two of them, like old times. Lily took out her violin, the violin that had once been his, and began to play. Not Butterfly Lovers or any of her orchestra pieces, but a simple folk melody he had taught her when she was just 6 years old. It was the first piece she had ever learned all the way through. As the familiar notes filled their small living room, Lily saw her grandfather close his eyes, his head gently nodding in time with the music. When she finished, he opened his eyes and smiled. "You play it the same," he said softly. "Different violin, different country, different Lily, but the heart of the music is the same." "I've missed playing for you," Lily admitted, "and I've missed hearing you. But now, I think we should practice. Together for this big concert, yes?" He opened his Erhu case and took out the 2-stringed instrument, positioning it on his knee and tightening the bow. The Erhu was far older than Lily's violin, its wood darkened with age and countless hours of handling. "Ready?" he asked. Lily nodded, lifting her violin to her shoulder. Together they began to play Butterfly Lovers, the violin soaring above the Erhu's deeper, more plaintive voice. The two instruments spoke to each other, weaving around one another like dancers, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in counterpoint, but always connected by the thread of the ancient melody. When they finished, Lily's parents, who had been listening from the kitchen, applauded. Her grandfather bowed his head modestly. "Not bad for a first rehearsal in a new country," he said with a smile, "but tomorrow will make it better." The next day, Lily brought her grandfather to school to rehearse in the auditorium where the concert would be held. Ms. Winters was waiting for them, eager to meet the man who had taught Lily to play with such emotion. "Mr. Chen," she said, shaking his hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Your granddaughter is one of the most talented young musicians I've had the privilege to teach." Lily translated for her grandfather, whose English was limited. He bowed slightly in acknowledgement of the compliment. "She says the talent is in your blood," Lily told him in Mandarin. He laughed. "Tell her the talent may be in the blood, but the skill comes from practice." Many, many hours of practice. As they set up to rehearse, Ms. Winters called Lily over to the edge of the stage. "I've arranged for something special," she said in a low voice. "There's a surprise at the end of your solo, but don't worry. It won't interfere with your playing. Just keep going no matter what happens, all right?" Lily was puzzled but nodded her agreement. She trusted Ms. Winters enough to go along with whatever she had planned. The rehearsal went well, with Ms. Winters offering only minor suggestions about tempo and dynamics. It was clear she was moved by the combined sound of the violin and erhu, occasionally closing her eyes to listen more intently.